Hello everybody. This is just a quick navigational tour through Google Classroom for those who couldn't make the training today. This is a great tool, I call it the Hub, where all of your classes can be stored, where you can share all of your work with your students. Students can turn things in. It's a very exciting tool, and it's really fun to work with teachers who are just getting into it because light bulbs just pop off in their head as they figure out ways they could use it in their classroom. So we're going to get started, and just to get started, you're going to go to classroom.google.com, and there's several different ways to get there, but with the way my computer's set up right now, the navigation would be different for you anyway. So I'm just already in Classroom, but let me just tell you a few things, and so listen because you can't see yet. But when you first go to Google Classroom for the first time, and you're logged in with your school account, you have to be in a school account, it's going to ask you if you are a student or a teacher. So teachers, always identify yourself as a student. As a teacher. Even if you're going to be a student in a class, so like if there's going to be some kind of professional development or something like that, and you're actually going to join the class as a student, always identify yourself as a teacher, because from then on, Google Classroom is going to give you the rights and the things that come along with being a teacher as opposed to what you would get as a student. And so that's a really important thing to do. If you identify yourself as a student, you will not be able to create classes. So that's pretty important. Okay, so you log in, and then you'll see up at the top, you won't have all of this yet, but if you see up at the top, there's a plus. And the plus is how you can join a class or create a class. And oftentimes you might have already been invited to join a class and gone through this process. But to create a class as a teacher, you would just call the class whatever you want. And then, you can put your section and your subject, and you hit create. It takes a few minutes to create. Okay, and so now I have a class. And up at the top, you'll notice there's a theme. And you might not like that theme. And so if you don't like that theme, you can go to select theme over here. And you can choose from multiple themes. There's all kinds. There's patterns, pictures. And if you don't like any of those themes, I'm just going to go for this for right now. If you don't like any of those themes, you can actually put your own image in there. It takes a little finagling because you have to get it an image cropped to the size that you would use here. Okay. So that's just kind of a little appearance thing. So there's 3 different tabs in Google Classroom. You've got Stream, Students, and About. So Stream is the page where all the activity is happening. This is where teachers are giving assignments, students are turning things in, there's discussions, announcements, that kind of thing. That's what's happening on Stream, and we'll go through a little bit of that in a minute. And then Students. So in Students, of course, this is where all your students will be listed. And there's a couple of ways to invite students. The easiest way to invite students is to give them the class code. So then they would go through the process that you just went through to get to this point. They would go to classroom.google.com, and they would click they would say they were a student, and then make sure they're logged into their school account. And then they would hit that plus button at the top, and they would enter your class code. And they only have to do this once. And one thing that I like to point out to people, this is actually a really great class code that it randomly selected for me here. But if I got a class code that maybe had I's and L's in it, or O's and zeros, something like that makes it kind of hard for students to properly copy, then what you can do is this download thing here. You can just hit reset, and it'll reset the code, and you can just keep playing with it until you get a great code like I already have right here. So that's that. And the other thing you can do is if you have your class all log in, and then you can click disable so that other people won't find the code and log in with it. So that's another thing you can do. You can kind of do the same thing by just resetting the code, and then you have a different code to give to any new students or anything like that. So you don't just have kids wandering in and out as they please. This year in Google Classroom, they have something new, Guardian email summaries. And so you can choose to have Guardian email summaries, and this is going to add all of your classes. And what you will do with this is you'll get a letter to send home to parents telling them that they can sign up with an email to get a weekly summary of class announcements and student work. And so parents can't get into Google Classroom per se. It's a safety, it's a closed environment, but they can sign up to see their own students' work in Google Classroom in this summary that would be sent to them by email. Okay. When you have students in here, under Actions, you're going to be able to see things like email the students, mute a student, different things like that, so that you have some access there. The other thing is students can post and comment. So right here, there's a drop-down menu, so you can choose, depending on what kind of class you have, meaning how you're going to use Classroom, which one of these would be most appropriate. So if you would like, some teachers are just using Classroom basically to push content out and have students turn stuff in, and they're not hoping for conversations, discussions, that kind of thing happening on Google Classroom. And so if that's the case, then you could just say only teacher can post or comment. And so the student is able to see what the teacher has put out there and able to respond to assignments, but they wouldn't be able to add their own comments or add a new post themselves. And then you can have students can only comment. So this would be where a teacher posts a comment that says something like field trip tomorrow, and the student could comment below, I can't wait, or how much money do we need to bring, or something like that. So that can happen there. And then students can post and comment. Actually allows the students to share with the other students a website they found or an idea they have, and kind of start a conversation that way. My kind of inclination is to go with students can only comment at first, but it really does matter what the purpose of your Google Classroom is and how you're using it in your class. Okay, so that is the Students tab here, and then About. This is your static page. This is the place where you would put anything that you want students to be able to find throughout the class. On the stream page, every time you add something new, it's going to go to the top. And so things can get lost in the stream page after a while. So if you've got a syllabus or you have a website, like a class website or something like that, you can put links to those kind of things here so students can always access those easily. Or like a curriculum, online curriculum, that kind of thing. So to do that, you would come down here and do Add Class Materials. And so you could say whatever your material is, or I'll just say and then I can add an attachment that is any kind of document, any kind of file, and I can do that with the paperclip. If my document or video or anything like that is in Google, or slideshow is in Google Drive, you can click here and that will open up in Drive and you can find something, and I'm just playing right now, and so that would pop in there. If you've got a YouTube video, you could add it using the YouTube button, or if you have a link to a website, you could add this one. And then you just hit post. Uh-oh, I don't have permission to share this particular thing. Bad example. That's what happens when you try to do something quickly. I'll just do this. Okay. All right. So if you have permission to post it, it will show up right there. So that is as easy as that for this. And you'll also notice on this About page, you have a place to put a class description, what class, where the class meets. And this little folder right here is really important. This folder is available in your Google Drive. This is also available in all of your students' Google Drive. So this is where their work is going to be, and this is where all of the things that you share with them are going to be saved. And so there will be a template folder for anything you share with them. And that's going to be like the sacred stuff that the students can't do anything to. They can't change it. But then it's also going to have all of the copies that the students make, and so that you can see that work. You'll also see that there's two options for calendar in Google Classroom. You've got View in Classroom, so this is just a classroom that's visible in this particular application, but you also have Open in Google Calendar. So every time you make an assignment in Google Classroom, once you make an assignment in Google Classroom, a Google Calendar is created for each student for that, or a Google Calendar for this class is sent to each student. And so that's really great because those calendars can layer on top of each other, and students can have multiple classes calendars showing up on their one personal school calendar. So it's a great way to teach them to organize. So if you put a due date on anything, it's going to show up in those two places. Okay, another thing in the About is that you have the option to invite a teacher. And so in Invite a Teacher, if you're co-teaching this with somebody else, or you've got a support teacher, you can invite that teacher so they'll be able to see the class and interact as a teacher. You can also invite people, adults, to join classes as students, and so they can just see what a student sees and interact as a student as well. But if you've got, two teachers that are going to be adding material, grading things, that kind of stuff, then you would want to actually invite them as a teacher. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Stream now. And in Stream, you will see that we've got some different things to see over here. This is the big one. The plus button is how you add anything to the stream. Okay, and I'm going to start with the Create Assignment one, because this is the one you'll probably use the most. So I just click on the plus and I go there and I create assignment. Okay, so in Google Classroom, you can create all kinds of assignments. It can be read pages 70 to 80, and there's nothing actually for them to turn in, and they'll just click done when they're done. Or it could be watch this video, or it could be creating something that they're going to do and then turn in. One way that's a really effective way to use this is to create a template for them in Google Docs or Google Slides or Google Sheets, something that you want them to complete or to work with, a writing prompt or anything. And then what you would do, so I'm just going to say this is a test. So you give them any instructions that they need. You can set a due date, and I'm just going to set tomorrow is my due date. You don't have to set a due date. The reason, like I said, if you set a due date, it shows up on the calendar. So that's good to know. And then on topic, as you move through your class, if you've got certain things that you always put in there, like you have a review or you have a vocabulary activity or things like that, or video, then you could actually start creating these as different topics so that they can be searched for more easily. Okay, so I've got this little demo here, and as I said when we were looking at the adding a resource, you can add all kinds of different things. So with the paperclip, basically you can add any kind of file. So you can add, it's uploading a file to attach. So it can be a Microsoft Word document, it could be a video, a sound file, anything. So that would be from the attach button. And what it does is if I click here, it's going to go to my computer. I'm going to have to either drag the file in or find on my computer, and then I would add it that way. Okay, again with Google Drive, it just takes you to your Google Drive, and I'm going to type in a specific one. Let's see what happens if I do this. So I'm going to find a specific activity that I want to share. I'm going to click Add. Okay, so this is a Think Share type activity, and then I get some options. So think of this as, you know, a document that you printed out. So would you like one copy, and all they're going to do is read the copy? So maybe this is just a reading activity. They need to read this paper. They're not writing on the paper. They're not doing anything like that. So for that, you would do students can view file. There's no reason to make a copy for each student. All they're doing is viewing it. They're not going to do anything to change the document. Or you might have some kind of activity where everybody is inputting on one document. They're doing a science experiment and they're putting their data into a spreadsheet, a shared spreadsheet, or they're working on a shared collaborative Google presentation. So they're all working on the same document. And sometimes that can get crazy and messy, but it's also very powerful and cool. So if you want them to do that, you would do students can edit file. But a lot of times, and mostly what we do, is make a copy for each student. So this is like going to the copy machine, making 25 copies, and then passing them out. And then anything that that student does on their own copy is just on their copy and not on everybody else's. So those are your three options. So I'm going to click Make a Copy for each student. And then the other options that I have down here for Assign, I can choose how I'm going to assign this. So I'm going to click on that little down arrow. I can hit Assign and it will pop out on my stream and on my student streams right now, and they'll see the assignment. Or I can schedule the assignment for some later date or some later time. So maybe I want all the students to get the Google form with the test questions after the last person has, you know, at the end of the day after my last period. So I could schedule that as a homework thing. They have to go in the classroom and get something. And then the other option is to save a draft. And so they all have their advantages. The schedule is nice, except, you know, things change when you're teaching. Schedules aren't always able to stick to our schedule. And so if you have something scheduled, you might find that in the end, that's not when you actually needed it to happen. With Save Draft, it just kind of stores it up at the top for you, waiting for you to assign it. The students don't see it until you go into the drafts and hit Assign. So that's kind of nice because you can be anywhere in the class day and just stop and hit Assign, and then it pops in for them. And you've already done all the prep work ahead of time. So those are your three options. So I'm going to click Assign. And then, okay, so that's pretty much the assignment. Just get the idea that you can do all kinds of assignments. And you'll notice here that I don't have any students yet, but if I had 25 students or something, they would show up over here. And as each one of them got into the document, completed the assignment, and hit Turn In, it would show up as that they had done it right there. The other thing that happens is that I click on this document, and again, this is not going to look very exciting. Actually, I'm going to go to another one of my classes. If I go over here, you'll see I can get to all of my other classes. Students can do the same. So, or get to their classes that they've joined. So I'm going to click on this one just to show you what that would look like. So here I am in this activity, and you'll see I've got 22 students. None of them are done with this activity. They've started it, but they're not done. They all got a copy. So if I click here on Keep Track of Progress, I see all of my students' documents, and they're going to pop up here in a minute. They didn't pop up right there, but it will pop up in a minute. Okay, so I will see all of my students' documents, and they're going to pop in here in a second. But they're just being a little slow right now. And I can click on each one of those, and it will take me to their document. I can write comments on them, all that kind of good stuff. It's really Pretty cool. I'm going to look at it in my Google Drive here. I want you to see what's actually there. It's hiding a little bit. Okay. All right, so if I go to keep track of typing, that's not where I'm on the wrong activity. That's my problem. Okay. Okay. So here's all of their activities, and I can click on each one of them. I can make comments. If they're finished, I could grade them and turn them back to them. I went to the wrong one. That's what the problem is. I should have gone to this one here. And this is what it would look like right in Classroom, not in Google Drive. So you see, I can see each of the documents. They've already opened them and looked at them. This other activity that I just shared, they hadn't done that yet. And I can see they're not done, but they're working on them. One cool thing you can do with that is in a classroom, you can have, maybe you're at a conference or something like that. You can pop in and see what your students are doing while they have a sub, which is really kind of fun. So, and you'll notice over here on this page, I can click on these, read them, make comments, and I can actually grade them on here. Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to go back to our class. Okay, so that is basically how you add an assignment. Now, you can also, with assignments, I'm going to add another one just to show you this. So I can also go create assignment, and I could say something like, open a Google Doc and do something, you know, write a letter or something like that. And if I did that, and I'm not sending them a template or anything like that, they would get a create button. And on that create button, they could go to Google Drive, open their Google Doc, create their document, and turn it in from there. So they just start the creation process there instead of with a template. Okay, so I'm going to kind of cruise through the rest of this real quickly. So nice thing is that you can reuse posts. So if you have the same class, more than one period of the same class, you can just assign it once and then reuse the post. You can also assign from archived classes from other years. So the create a question is like an assignment. That it's different than an announcement in that you're asking your students a question and they're going to respond, and you'll see how many of your students responded, and they can actually be graded on their answer. So it's different than the announcement where they could make a comment. This is more of a formal, you're asking them a question expecting some kind of answer for like an exit ticket and things like that. If I create a question, I can give some different options. So in a question, I can have a short answer or multiple choice. So it can be like a poll if you'd like, and you can decide whether students can reply to each other or not, and whether students can edit their answer. So students can't see other people's answers until they've submitted theirs, and so then you could decide, you know, once they've submitted it, can they take it back or not. Okay, so that's questions, and then we've already done assignments, and then the last one is announcements, and this is just where you would say field trip tomorrow, or here's a cool video to watch, or those kind of things. And it doesn't give you a due date, and it doesn't give you any way to push something out to the students or anything like that. So that's a lot right there. Another thing is over on the left, you'll see any assignments that have been created and are coming due. You can also decide as a teacher, if you've got it set up so that students can share things, you can have it so you can see the deleted items if needed. So that's a kind of a cool thing there. If you've deleted things but you still want to be able to see them, even though your students can't see them. Okay, so Google Classroom is great. You will be so excited about all the ways that you can use it. There's it's kind of open-ended, And so everybody uses it a little bit differently, but those are the basics of the tools, and that can get you started. So I hope you enjoy using Google Classroom.